Hi there, Sagittarius. I'm EllaAradia, and welcome to your March 2026 Psychic Tarot reading. This reading is for my Sagittarius fire signs, where we'll be exploring the overall energies and themes for the month ahead, as well as taking a deeper dive into how these might be playing out for you in your life. This is a general reading, so it's going to resonate a little bit differently for all of you. But what I do find is there's always a shared theme that runs through the collective of all of you Sagittarius signs. So take what feels aligned to you and just leave the rest. And before we jump in, a big thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel by liking and subscribing. So if you enjoyed this reading and you haven't already done that, please do. It helps the channel out a lot. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and then you get notified when the next videos are up. So Sagittarius, let's jump in. So I always like to tune into the energies before I start pulling any cards. I just like to see what comes through. Definitely seeing that many of you are at some kind of in-between point. A lot of endings, a lot of things, completing. What feels like, some quite challenging endings to me. Things which didn't work out in the way that you thought they would or the way that you wanted them to. But what you're really wanting, I feel, hasn't quite come in yet. And so it's kind of left you at this in-between point, which I feel is, bringing up a lot of stuff for many of you. And so it's going to be different things for different people, but whatever emotions, whatever insecurities or fears are coming up, because sometimes it's easier to kind of move on from one thing that didn't work out when you've already, it's not too much time until the thing that you do want comes in. It's a lot easier sometimes to, move on when that new thing is already kind of there, like you can see it. But when you don't, I do feel sometimes that can be, quite a challenging spot. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of stuff coming up to the surface. And there is a reason for this. It's an invitation from the universe, I feel, to really heal and resolve, whatever that is, because it feels to me like there is just some layers. Whether these are old patterns or old versions of yourself, these are layers which I feel need to be let go of in order for you to be able to really move into the energy that is going to attract in what you truly want. Because what you don't want to happen is more of the same. And so even though this in-between point that many of you are in, you may have recently found yourself single or something like that, or it could be a job that fell through, and there's a little bit of a lost feeling as to, what are my next steps? I've been applying for jobs, nothing's coming in. There's usually an invitation for a little bit of self-work in some way, whether that is studying something or being open to perhaps a slightly different avenue. There's always a reason for, something not quite coming in yet, because there's something more that perhaps the universe wants you to work on. So with your overall energies, we have the Ten of Wands. So this is a completion, and it usually represents the completion of, a challenging time, which is what I'm talking about, something that, has been difficult, that has perhaps felt very heavy for some of you. But Ten of Wands represents, that chapter ending. What lies in your recent past, heartbreak, Three of Swords. This is a card which represents, emotional sadness. Sometimes it can be an energy of separation. So for some of you, this may be a connection that broke down. It might be someone that you're currently separated from, some kind of no contact situation for some of you. And feeling wounded, heartbreak, sadness, emotional discomfort. But the hidden message of this card, even though, it might be difficult, it might be challenging, there is that saying, isn't there, that, the wounds are actually where the light gets in. And so sometimes, some of the most powerful lessons can come from those most difficult times. Your current energy is strength. I feel like you're really going through it at the moment. And, strength is just a little message I feel here from the universe to let you know that you can get through this. You do have the strength, you do have the courage. And sometimes the only way through is to literally go through it and face, whatever this has kind of brought up for you. For many of you, I'm getting the sense this is a relationship that may have broken down, because I am feeling heartbreak here. I'm feeling a sense of loss, of sadness, and of, being separated from someone. Your feelings towards your situation, the Page of Wands. In the challenge, we have Judgment. I feel like this is the person that you may have been dealing with here, Sagittarius. The Page of Wands, fire energy, a very enthusiastic energy. And, quite a charismatic energy as well. But what I also feel about this is perhaps a lack of emotional availability or depth. And this may be, what has kind of gotten heavy, with this Ten of Wands, this sense of perhaps carrying that connection. That's what I'm feeling here. Pouring into it, pouring into this person in the hopes of perhaps something changing, in the hopes of them being able to perhaps step up in some way to be more for you. And I do see like a separation. So it might be that you have moved on from this person. You may have felt that you had to, or they have. And there is a deep knowing, perhaps, that there was something about this connection that wasn't perhaps balanced, or it wasn't healthy in some way, or it wasn't really giving you that emotional fulfillment. But at the same time, this is someone I feel that you did invest in. Your heart went in, your emotions were in there. And so, of course, there is this heartbreak that I'm feeling here as well. And I do feel like it's been a challenge to get to this point, because with Judgment in the challenge position, this is the energy where you're being called to question something. You're being called to take a pause, to review. It's a moment of a life review, to really look, at a situation and reassess it, because clearly there's something that really wasn't working about this connection. And you're being asked to look at that, to analyze things and really see the whole picture here, the truth of a situation. Because Judgment is a card of looking at the past, learning from the past, and learning the lessons so that moving forwards you don't repeat the same patterns again. And it might be a little bit of a challenge right now in terms of healing, or in terms of, perhaps understanding, the greater lessons of this. I feel like it's more about understanding, the higher lessons in terms of, what really was the purpose of your connection with this person. Because sometimes people come into our lives to teach us lessons. They come into our lives to really bring up whatever we have inside of us that we need to heal and resolve. And sometimes that is their purpose. And sometimes they're not actually meant to stay. They're not meant to stay for the long term. And so sometimes when you can kind of get above the situation and get into that higher perspective and understand the connection in that way, understand the soul lessons, it can make it a lot easier to perhaps trust, what has unfolded. Because ultimately, it's some kind of healing journey that I'm feeling here. And that healing journey, that path, will bring you ultimately, to a person who is ready to reciprocate and love you back in the way that you love them. But it's not always easy. It's not always comfortable. That's the thing. But, you do have the strength to get through this, Sagittarius. And that's what the message of the Strength card is for you. So just have the courage, take one step at a time, one day at a time, face any fears, insecurities, allow all the feelings to be there. Sometimes you don't even have to know what to do with those emotions. It's actually more about just letting them be there and being present with them and allowing yourself to fully feel those feelings, because ultimately your heart and your energy system knows what to do with that energy. All you have to do is be present with it, and your heart will transform that. Your energy system will transform that. And, as you do that, you will start to feel a little bit of a transition happening, and you will start to feel that bit by bit you're getting through things. The hidden influence is the Nine of Pentacles. I feel like that's you, the invitation here to come back to your power. Even if that means being single for a while, even if that means, facing some of these uncomfortable feelings, these challenging emotions. This is all about kind of getting to that sweet spot where you kind of feel okay on your own. You feel complete and whole. Doesn't mean that you don't want love, that you don't want to connect with, a life partner. But at the same time, it's not just about connecting with anybody. It's about, connecting with the right person. And until that moment, this is a card that's kind of just saying you're okay on your own. And not only that, that can be a good feeling. Nothing is really lacking. Your advice from the universe, the Six of Swords. So this is a card of a transition. And this is exactly what I was seeing right at the beginning. This in-between point that I was seeing you at. So it's about moving away from challenging times, choppy waters, moving away from something that, wasn't emotionally fulfilling for you, but moving towards, calmer shores, to a place of healing. And, that the energies of this card sometimes can be a little bit bittersweet, because it is the kind of transition which is involving healing. You know, it may involve moving on from something, somebody. You know, there might still be feelings there, but at the same time knowing that, you know, that there were things that weren't right in the connection. They weren't, you know, really the right person for you. And so that's that kind of bittersweet energy. And it does feel a little bit challenging, like I said, because I feel like, you know, what you do really want hasn't quite come in yet. It's a little bit like on the card, they can't really see a destination just yet. But it is an energy of moving towards ultimately calmer shores, a place of healing, and, you know, that will lead you to emotional fulfillment, emotional contentment. What lies in the outcome is the world. So the ending of a difficult chapter, that is what this Ten of Wands is. You know, difficult times are, you know, they're coming to an end now, and the world is also about new beginnings. It's endings and beginnings, and it's the kind of ending which it's a completion, but it's also an upgrade. So whatever comes to a close, whatever you're moving towards, you know, will be something better for you. And you are moving into, you know, much more of a place of wholeness and completeness. What lies beyond that is the Six of Cups. And I feel like this is a message, you know, when the time's right to kind of look back on the past, take the happy memories, you know, take those, you know, moments where, you know, we felt loved and things were good, and definitely carry that love forwards. But at the same time, just a little caution to make sure you don't stay living in the past. Just remember, you know, that there is more out there for you. And at the moment, it's just about going through this process, one step at a time. Let yourself feel your feelings, and just remember, you know, this is all happening for a reason. And, you know, there is somebody better out there for you, because this is all about what the energies of the world are saying. So just trust the process here, Sagittarius. There's no rush. What you're looking for is out there. But first of all, you know, you need to get your energy in the right space so that you're vibrating energetically on a level where you can actually attract in, you know, the kind of person or whatever it is that you're wanting to, you know, bring into your life. So I'm going to leave that there. If this reading resonated, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, no matter what comes through in a reading, moving forwards, always trust what feels right for you. Thanks so much for being here, and I wish you a great month ahead.